Norsca have finally had their day in the sun after eons in the shadows. Since Tides of Torment, they've become a truly devastating faction with very powerful mechanics and even unique playstyles between the lords. So let's take a look and see how they all work. And if you want to know how this channel works, it's channel members supporting the content. In return, they get all the same videos with none of the ads. Find out more and become a member at the join button below. And now let's get into Norsca. First up, we have their campaign mechanics that are shared between the factions, and first of all, we have allegiance to the Dark Gods. This generally acts as a campaign-long goal for two of the Norscan lords. As they defeat enemy settlements in battle, they can choose to erect altars in the name of each of the 4 Dark Gods. These altars have very limited building slots and can only make use of a limited selection of buildings to empower local armies and offer limited recruitment. Could I use the word limited any more in one sentence? I don't think so. Doing this increases their allegiance, earning them bonuses at 5, 10, and 15 altars for each god. Each of the gods also has their own set of bonuses, but in general, you're looking at buffs for that god's units, access to Warriors of Chaos units, and some campaign buffs. Upon reaching 15, you'll be given the option to dedicate to that god, unlocking a powerful champion for use in your armies. However, doing this locks you out of unlocking any of the other 3 gods' champions, so choose carefully before you commit. You will, however, be able to access all other bonuses, so don't worry about that. It's only the champions you'll be locked out of. If you refuse all 4 gods, you'll be attacked by those champions, and if you survive, you'll instead gain a powerful buff for the rest of your campaign. When playing as Norsca, there are 2 types of settlements. The first is a Norscan region. These settlements can be immediately occupied upon defeating their owner in battle, just like you would when playing any other faction. The second is everywhere else. All other settlements will still be usable as regular settlements, but to occupy them you'll need to spend a large amount of spoils. This is a currency gained primarily through raising settlements, which is then mainly spent on capturing settlements, as well as powerful new buildings and other minor mechanics. When raising enemy settlements, instead of just handing you the spoils, the game instead creates a spoil-carrying army, which will need to travel back to one of your settlements or altars to deposit them in your resource pool. Those armies can attack like any other, allowing them to potentially collect more spoils on their way home. However, if destroyed, you will lose all carried spoils, so prioritize on getting them home to ensure you receive your payout. Norscan factions also have access to a set of actions they can take in any region where they own a settlement or altar. They can enact these to gain various bonuses in the local region, such as raiding unknown settlements for gold, enemy debuffs or buffs based on which altars you have locally. They're very simple but can be pretty useful depending on what you need and what the region offers. Lastly, we have the monster hunts, and these are separated into 3 categories. Glory hunts are for regiments of renown, new items, and other bonuses. Taming hunts have multiple stages. The first stage can only be completed once, but the second can be repeated infinitely, allowing you to farm powerful units for use in your armies. This opens up more options when building armies, as you can take the time to do a bunch of taming if you really wanted to feature a bunch of monsters in your roster. Lastly, trophy hunts are for powerful items and one-time rewards. All 3 of these can only be completed in certain climates, so be sure some of it is nearby to whichever lord you assign the hunt. Which reminds me, you can also assign certain lords to hunts, so only that lord can complete each step. Completing a certain number of each of these different types of hunts will grant you the Supreme Hunter status, granting you increased bonuses and reduced cooldown for hunts, along with massive buffs for your monster hunt monsters. If you're planning on making use of any of the monsters from these hunts, and you probably should, you'll want to prioritize unlocking this buff as early as you can to maximize its value for as much of the campaign as possible. Now we come to the individual factions, and first up we have the World Walkers, led by Wulfrik the Wanderer. Wulfrik is the Marauders expert of Norsca, bringing several buffs to make them much cheaper to maintain and increase the charging power of their chariots and cavalry. And naturally, he's also a powerful raider, massively increasing the amount of cash his faction can make from simply roaming through foreign lands. For his own army, he has access to the Sea Fang mechanic. Whilst this is listed as a faction effect, I assure you this is just for Wulfrik's army and can be used by any lord that confederates him. Sea Fang allows him to instantly teleport to any port he has vision over, as long as he's also on water at the time. Not only does he maintain any movement range after he arrives, he can also choose to bring nearby owned armies with him, allowing him to essentially airdrop his entire military power in an instant. It's extremely powerful for quickly taking port settlements and getting a foothold in hostile lands before they even see him coming. To add on to this, his own army can also attack port settlements without having to come onto land, giving him excellent mobility on the water. Naturally, he's also immune to all sea-based attrition and has some bonus campaign movement range, so he can sail and teleport around the map at a rapid rate. Lastly, all units under his command cause fear, allowing them to break enemies in no time. Wulfrik is probably the best Norscan lord if you really want to take the fight to the rest of the world. Not only does he start far from Norsca, with the option to abandon the motherland and focus entirely on literally greener pastures, he can also teleport himself and nearby allies wherever he likes, allowing him to be anywhere and fight anyone. He can make the best use of the conquest area of the tech tree by zipping around the map, wiping out major factions and taking their capitals for massive rewards. It's also extremely easy to do this very early and very cheaply with his penchant for marauders, and just how easy it is to get hold of them. He may not have that critical mass that the other lords eventually reach, but he fully embodies the roaming raider playstyle like no one else. Next up we have Wintertooth, led by Throg. Throg's mechanic is the Troll King's Dominion. Throg is of course the Troll Lord of Norsca, and naturally this allows him to lean on the beastly side of the roster a little harder than normal, and that begins with his Troll King's Dominion mechanic. Over the course of a campaign, you can build unique Troll Kingdom buildings to increase your levels of Troll King's Dominion. The more you collect, the higher your level of Troll King's Dominion, resulting in powerful buffs for all troll units, along with empowering the Call of the Monstrous Horde ability. This summons a greenskin horde-like army that follows around an existing army, essentially allowing you to double up on military power without increasing your footprint. These armies are filled with a mix of monstrous units, and the higher your level of Dominion, the more units you get. Upon reaching the max tier, this now affects all armies in your faction, so can give you an insane power boost if you invest in it. To call monstrous hordes, you need to spend Trollkind, which is a resource gained via Troll Kingdom buildings and by maintaining troll units in your armies. Alongside this, Throg can also gain access to Bile, Chaos and River Trolls by capturing specific locations on the map. These add some nice variety to your armies, so are always worth capturing if you spot them on your travels. And as if all of this wasn't enough, he also makes all troll units tougher and cheaper for all armies. Lastly, his superior intellect allows him to pilfer the battlefield for little extra cash. His big brain, combined with his troll focus, allows all units in his army to be immune to all kinds of attrition, so no matter where they go, they will be unhindered. He also spreads undivided corruption wherever he goes to destabilize enemy lands and establish his own. And lastly, he can recruit trolls for cheaper and increases their often low leadership. Throg is of course the monsters expert of the lords, but that not only goes for his troll focus, but also how well placed he is to make the most of the monster hunts. His starting location being so close to so many climates means he can take on a bunch of hunts without having to travel too far afield. Add on just how well trolls can gang up on and burst down large monsters, and all of the buffs you can bring them once in your army, and you've got one hell of a snowball. And for the Pista resistance, his troll hordes start off weak but eventually reach critical mass that allows you to drown the world without hardly needing a marauder in sight. And lastly, we have the Dolgan led by Sayl the Faithless. Sayl's mechanic is the manipulations. This allows him to manipulate all kinds of situations to his advantage and integrates with his version of the allegiance to the Dark Gods. Instead of the 4 gods to choose from, Sayl simply raises altars for himself, and in doing so brings increasingly powerful buffs for his army, along with access to some Warriors of Chaos units. To unlock the full power of each tier, he will also need to beat challenging quest battles against various factions. These tiers also unlock more manipulations for him to use, and these are accessed from their own menu. Each one has their own effect, but generally you are screwing over enemy factions and aiding yourself in various ways. Most are self-explanatory based on the description, but one requires a little more clarification. Subversion from within causes an undersettlement to be built under the target neutral settlement. Within this, you can build 1 inroads and 1 assault building. Inroads allows you to empower yourself in the campaign with buffs such as recruitment and replenishment. Assault instead focuses on unit buffs. If the settlement is captured by you, these buildings then spread to all neighbouring regions owned by the same faction, allowing you to maintain these powerful bonuses for the full duration of the treachery. It's a great way to start a war against a faction and ensure your first few battles are heavily in your favour. Each manipulation also attracts the attention of the gods, and if you attract too much, you will face dilemmas, sending the armies of the Chaos Gods your way, and other more interesting problems to slow you down. Sayl also has access to a couple of unique marauding actions. Subterfuge works hand in hand with his manipulations, allowing you to give your units a huge boost to attack and armor, and enemies a huge debuff to spell cost and miscast chance. Profanity empowers spellcasters in your own armies with more powerful and shorter cooldowns for spells, along with more Winds of Magic reserves. He's of course the most powerful magic user in Norsca, granting his Shaman Sorcerers increased power upon recruitment, and more Winds of Magic for all armies to keep spells coming even in longer engagements. Lastly, he's also a pretty big fan of horses from his weekends spent at the racetrack, and so grants all Kurgan horsemen increased damage. This is legit, factual, Games Workshop confirmed lore, and he doesn't actually bring these bonuses because they're just part of the same DLC and that's what it is. His love of magic and horses continues to his own army, where he increases the intensity of all of his spells, reduces his miscast chance, and grants those Kurgans some poison damage. Sayl is of course the most mechanically deep of the Norsca lords, allowing him to have a relatively complex campaign without being confusing to play. His singular focus rather than the 4 Dark Gods allows him to focus entirely on the manipulate 4 Dark Gods allows him to. Right, the dog's been sacrificed to the Dark Gods. Where was I? His singular focus rather than the 4 dark gods allows him to focus entirely on the manipulations and using them to turn every single scenario in his favour. He's one of those mischievous lords that's really hard to deal with for the AI, as you just pile so many effects onto the map that they won't know what to do. Aside from his mechanics, he's a great lord for a more caster-focused playstyle, with lots of magic to roll through enemy armies with ease. And who can forget the horses, which are definitely also there. But what I want to know is, which of the Norscan lords is your favourite? Do you enjoy being a sneaky little guy with Sayl, or would you prefer the more straightforward monstrous approach of Throg? Let me know in the comments below, like the video if you did, subscribe for more, and if you want more Immortal Empires guides, then check out this video all about the High Elves.